All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the More Than Just a Wedding podcast. Today, I have one of my dear, talented, longtime industry friends, Sarah Dahl Watts, with us today.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me, Jen.
Sarah is an artist and a floral designer, and I am through the roof excited to be able to ask her questions today because, and I was just sharing with her before we started, florals, one of the most beautiful parts of the wedding, if not the most beautiful, but also oftentimes one of the hardest pieces to figure out from a planning, budgeting, styling standpoint. So thank you, Sarah, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Let's dig right in. Okay, Sarah, let's start with you. How did you get into floral design? And share with us a little bit about your background and your journey.
Okay. It goes way back. So I actually started with floral design in 1996. So really, it's 30 years of it being a part of my life.
Amazing.
I co-owned a flower shop in Richfield, Minnesota with my best friend and her mom. So we did everyday flowers. It was like a regular flower shop, but I always loved the weddings. So fast forward to 2011, I was desperate. I did not love my job. It was managing a bridal boutique. So again, like my love of weddings and, them just kind of being embedded in me. And I just thought, I can't do this. Like, this isn't it. My dream has always been to be way more creative than this. I have drawn and painted since I was a kid, but also I just am an avid nature lover. I grew up wandering gardens in Minnesota and I love lakes and woods. And now I love the desert so much. But I talked to my then boyfriend, who is my husband now, and said, "Hey, I really think I want to try this, entrepreneurship path. And I know how to design flowers. And I keep getting feedback from all these brides at the bridal boutique that they, can't afford flowers or they don't know what to do. So a lot of them were DIYing like with silks from Michael's. And I was like, oh my gosh, you need fresh flowers for your wedding. And it just felt completely moved to start that business. So 2011 was the year that I started the business, got married.
Here in Arizona, right?
Arizona, yes. Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, so it was kind of crazy. I just was like, I don't know if anyone's going to respond to this or what's going to happen. I actually had worked on developing what I was going to do as a business for 2 years before my first wedding.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
impressive, Sarah.
I just did not jump the gun. I really wanted to figure it out because it gets scared to leave corporate America and benefits and things like that. So anyway, again, my husband was so supportive all along the way, but I got insanely busy quick. I had 3 venues feeding me business, and in my first 2 years, I did about 200 weddings. Yeah, which is crazy. If you like break down weekends, like that's a lot of weddings in a weekend. So I just totally went through the school of hard knocks, like small weddings. I really wasn't doing any like larger production weddings at that time.
Sure.
And then fast forward to now, I actually completed our last wedding design last month. So about a month ago, May 9th. And it was a wonderful experience. I loved working with the family, but now I'm going to be serving the wedding community in a little bit of a different way. So, and we can get to that later, but yeah, so that's how I got started. And flowers are in my DNA now. Like I can't get enough.
Sarah, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but in the planner world, I feel like our brains are always just going 100 miles an hour, just because we're always anticipating the next move.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I can be just sort of stopped in my tracks a little bit in a good way by some of our industry creatives that remind me to just stand still for a second, and take something in. And you are one of those humans because I've witnessed you. It's so beautiful. Like I see you actually touching and finessing flowers all the way up until the start of the wedding. You are so hands-on, and just literally watching you as an artist with the petals and maneuvering the stems and doing this and taking a design, and it's just really quite special because I think again in the planning world we're looking at everything all at once. And when I can stop and zero in on something so specific and know how, number one, how insanely talented you are, but also just your genuine care and love for florals and design, it's just so beautiful. So
That means a lot. Thank you.
truly, truly. And I've been in your design studio and a handful of times. And when I would walk in there, like the part I love about events is the feeling that you feel when you walk into a space. And when I would walk into your space, there was always a sense of comfort. There was nice lighting. You always had candles lit. The environment was always beautiful. There were always obviously fresh florals, but you didn't. I've been in other floral studios that don't look like that. I mean, you really made it look like a welcoming experience and so comfortable. And I feel like that also translates into your art and your florals too. And what's also really special is, you know, the longer I've done this, I can usually sometimes be able to know who the florist was by looking at photos.
Mm,
Sometimes, because there's this signature touch, there's a signature look, there's a feeling. Maybe they're florals that you also gravitate towards. Maybe there's also some shades, but
mhm.
your work is just so standout beautiful. So
Thank
it's been
you.
so fun to work with you over all of these years.
You so much. It's been so fun to work with you. Wanted to always cultivate in everything that I did with weddings, a sense of peace and relaxation because weddings are very stressful, as we all know. Even the most laid back clients can get triggered by something that just makes them feel like, oh my gosh. I mean, it even comes down to they don't want to be the center of attention
Yeah.
and they just feel like their nerves need to be soothed and calmed down. And I always thought one of my service things that I could offer was to not allow the flowers to be stressful. And they are a
Hard.
lot. Everybody's excited about them, but then the first thought is we are spending so much money on something that is going to die. And it can't really be approached from there. It needs to be approached from, yes, this is a ephemeral product. Like it's not going to stay forever. But it will always be immortalized in your wedding photos. And also that experience that you had choosing those florals and working with the planner and the florist is very important because you're going to look back on your wedding album in 20 years. I just recently, well, it was a year ago, I went on a cruise that was so fun, but there was a couple there that was celebrating their 20th wedding anniversary. And we got to talking to them, and the husband said, um, she always hated her wedding flowers.
Mm.
She still to this day, when we talk about the wedding flowers, she just says how much she hated them. And I felt like that was a gut punch. I was like, oh my gosh, that would be the worst thing if I knew that my bride just hated it. But again, it's part of the energy and the love and the peace and the connection that you pour into it. And it's really personal. Couples need to kind of brainstorm a little bit about before they get into even talking, whether it's virtually or in person to a florist is what is their inspiration point? Sometimes that's really difficult, but I think it's really awesome if they can start to think about their whole wedding experience as such a personal touchstone of like, okay, did they meet in, let's just paint this picture. Like say they met when they were in college in Florida near the beach, and they both absolutely like loved that life, loved that experience, and it was really integral to their love story. But they're getting married in Scottsdale. You could still plan an entire wedding just around the colors of where they lived, putting those coastal colors in, or, taking like a photo from what that they took that they were together of nature outside or something, and like draw upon that. I feel like too much inspiration now is drawn from things that have already been designed. And so everything looks the same. And I think a lot of people might be scared to put those personal influences in, but I can say that my favorite weddings to design for over the years were the ones where they got really like personal about what they loved and what they liked together as a couple. And even if it's, their college football team colors or, whatever, that could still be done in a really cool way that shows their personality. So I think that's really important. Another thing that I think is important is for them to, like, especially brides get really excited about the flowers and they want to start on that immediately. But, as a planner, that is difficult when they don't have their venue already. They
Right.
don't have their dress chosen. The dress actually dictates a lot about how the bouquet should be, and then kind of everything else in the wedding. Sometimes they choose a venue that is going to way clash with the original color inspiration that they came up with.
Right.
And so, like, I think it's important to have those pieces of the puzzle before they start meeting with the florist, which is also going to reduce them feeling like they have to change their mind once they get those pieces of the puzzle started. And I know it's important to book a florist, especially one that you want to work with, even if your wedding's 18 months out or 2 years out. Sometimes there's long engagements. So just give that florist, well, first of all, I really recommend if you're able to meet with them, or if you're out of state, like try a Zoom call. Like that actually does help a lot too. But I think just a phone conversation is not enough. You need to have some kind of eye contact and get a feeling about that person. But then if you really want to make sure that you're booked with that florist, like put a deposit down and just say, these are kind of the quick bullet points about our wedding, and we really want to book with you, but it's kind of a work in progress. Like, and so
Right.
that way the planner knows who they're working with, but also the florist has the date reserved for them, and she knows, like, okay, I'm working with this couple for their date. They're collecting this information, and then we can get started on the design, because a lot of times design proposals are made, they take a long time on the florist part. And so people get frustrated because they're like, oh, I'm waiting on this design proposal from this florist, but it takes a lot of time.
I want to make sure we touch on that
Yeah.
specifically. So, the ideal time to book a florist, I'm with
Mhm.
you as well. We call it phase two of the planning
Okay.
process, because phase one is like our foundational part where we want deeply rooted venue, vendors, budget established, just all the roots for
Mm.
phase one. But to your point, we also don't want to, if there's a florist they're very excited to work with, we don't want to miss out on that florist. And a lot of times, and we're trying to get better and better at this with our clients, is we really hold them to finalizing phase one before we head into phase two, because phase two is the design phase.
Mhm.
And as you know, the design phase is very layered and there's so many options, and it's a whole nother world. So we try really hard to get them done with phase one before we move into phase two. But I appreciate your suggestion about locking in with the florist before you maybe even start designing.
Mhm.
And so that is such a, and please be as honest and transparent as you feel comfortable, Sarah. But this is something that we have noticed with some of our couples is they would like maybe 3 different proposals from
Mhm.
3 different florists.
Mhm.
And I've noticed that our florists all handle this a little bit differently.
Mm.
And I completely understand because the amount of work and effort that can go into a floral proposal for then a client to walk away
Mhm.
is substantial.
Mhm.
And so what we've been trying to do with our clients is present to them florists that we think would be a good fit based on preferred pricing ranges, style,
Mhm.
availability, obviously. And we encourage them look at this florist, go online, look at their website, look at their social media, get a sense for who they are. And if you feel good about that, let's make a commitment to them. And then the design comes later, as opposed to trying to plan out every detail before booking the actual florist.
Mhm.
Help me understand the
I
best pathway.
I think really what that stems from is a trust. Um, I don't even want to say issue, but it's again, it is a financial investment that doesn't right off the gate make a lot of sense, but it does make a difference on how the day even feels, like it really does with the floral. Like it is an important component. So I think that perhaps there needs to be a collaboration between the planners and their relationships with the florist where they really know this is someone you can trust. And there's a lot of confidence in that because
Yes.
I think the clients do really want to abide by what you as the planner that they hired is telling them. And I know they want to see options because, it's like, are we it's not even always about can we get this for less money. It's about do I like this person's design or do I like their style or they're definitely researching before they make that decision.
If I can just bring in, this is an example that we thought of that I feel like kind of makes sense. It's like
Sure.
when you book your venue, you
Mhm.
don't have your entire menu finalized before you
Right.
sign that contract.
Right.
You have seen it, you like it, you're comfortable with the requirements to book it, and then
Mhm.
with time, those puzzle pieces come together.
Mhm.
Do you agree that we should approach floral the same way?
I think that it's a good call because a lot of the design needs to be woven in with those florals also. So getting started on rentals and things that like I've gotten a lot of design decks over the years where everything is incorporated and the planner is actually taking pictures of centerpieces that the bride liked online and pulling them into a Canva mock-up or whatever, which I think is great. It's so great for reference. But also, especially if the florist has had as much experience as like say I have, I know what's in season. I know what's available. I know what's going to work for Arizona. Some of the stuff is only in season during the summer, and we don't have weddings in the summer. So that isn't going to work. So I think the florist needs to be involved just for cohesiveness and for it to feel like a smooth process, really pretty much right away. And I know a lot of times too, it's like, let's see what we're going to do with your wedding budget. And then floral is kind of like the last piece. And I think that that is difficult sometimes because then it's all this money was spent, which don't get me wrong, the guest and what they're eating and what they're entertained with and all of that stuff is really important. And it is more important sometimes than the more aesthetic things that are added into the wedding. And, I can honestly say I've been to weddings where I didn't even remember what was on the tables, but I remember how the whole experience felt. And even if I didn't remember what was on the tables of floral even,
Sure.
that it still felt a certain way and it all fit together. So I think that the florist needs to be like really kind of, I would say, like you said, like phase two, like almost midway in the whole thing. Like I was just saying, there's so many pieces of the puzzle that need to come together before that happens. But when it's starting to get into the design portion, also, I know there's been formulas over the years where it's like we got to figure out what the allocation is to floral. And a lot of times they'll say, like, oh, it's 10% of the overall budget for the floral and decor and whatever. But maybe sometimes it's more than that. And it, and it all depends too on our couple's priority. If they aren't prioritizing flowers, then they can have their budget be somewhere else. But if that's a big deal to them, but then they all of a sudden are, spending money on things that aren't a priority just because they like how it looks, no one's ever done it before. Usually it's their first time doing it. So they're like, well, I guess we have to have chargers that cost $10 a person and we're having 200 guests,
Right.
but you don't have to. And that money can go towards the things that are important, which also I will say your company, everybody that works for your company is so amazing at really listening to the couples and determining what is right for them. I've never experienced where you tried to talk somebody into something that they weren't into. You definitely guide them along the way and listen to what they want.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think one of our core values is really it's a reflection of them and what they value. And it's not about what we think is the latest and greatest aesthetic or what's going to look good with our brand or make our website look incredible. Like we
Mhm,
care less about that. I want them to feel 20 years later on their cruise so
mhm,
proud of how their wedding felt and the
mhm,
and part of the way it felt is how it looked and how it came together and all of that energy.
mhm.
So
Yeah,
thank you, Sarah.
we can't have a bride looking at her bouquet going, "I really hated that." When it's the most photographed piece of floral and it's basically been with her the entire day.
Yeah, it's an
That
extension of her.
it is. I mean, it's like the accessory that you're carrying down the aisle, like it's such a big deal. So, yeah, I think just knowing what the client already wants before they're presented. Back to the three different options. This is a question that I like now have. Is that the case with every single vendor or is it just really specific to floral?
We are, again, as a team, we're constantly talking about how can we guide our clients better.
Hmm.
And we have seen a little bit more of an uptick of clients wanting to research multiple vendors. And
Hmm.
we try to explain to them, we respect their wishes, but we explain to them, you're going to overwhelm yourself
Hmm.
and it's going to start to get oversaturated and you're going to lose sight of what you want. So we really try. And the reason why they hire us ideally is that we have gained an understanding of them as a couple and what they want and what their needs are. And then we like to recommend 2 to 3 vendors
Hmm.
max. And even with that, if they find somebody they love, go with that. There's no
Hmm.
need to go through the process of all the back and forth of proposals and whatnot if you feel gravitated towards someone.
Right.
Um,
I think it creates so much like decision fatigue on their part
mhm.
and just so much overwhelm that doesn't need to happen. But I think it is really such a great idea to have it be so specific, have bullet points and say that if you're going to research three different vendors, these are the five top questions that need to be asked of them because
Right.
so many people go off of aesthetics
Yeah.
and they're not going off of, is this person going to be a solid option for making sure no matter what, rain or shine, that they're going to roll with the punches and execute on my wedding day? And are they going to be there on time? Are they going to like hold up anything? there's so many other factors besides what things look like. And
Right.
I feel like over the years, a bit, weddings are getting into more about what it looks like and less about, was this a seamless experience? Was this so great? I didn't have to worry about anything, sort of a thing. So
It's
I think that's another thing too, is we are so spoiled for option,
right.
so spoiled.
Right.
So,
And my biggest thing as someone that's been doing this my whole adult life, I want to know if they're a good communicator.
hmm
Because if we have someone on our vendor team that is not a good communicator, it makes it so frustrating and so unnecessarily stressful, especially as we get into the finalization of everything when our final counts are due. Okay, so Sarah, if you would be so kind as to walk me through this. Best case scenario, let's talk about the stages for booking your florist. So, again, best case scenario, we present options to our couples and they really gravitate towards a certain florist.
hmm
Great, amazing, wonderful. They feel good with moving forward with the florist because they want to make sure that they lock that date in.
hmm
So we go to the florist and we ask, are there any required minimums or fees that we should be made aware of, and so forth. Some florists have minimums, some don't. And everyone, when I say minimum, I mean a minimum required spend to book
hmm
that florist on that certain date.
hmm
And again, it's not a company being mean, it's them protecting their business. And because we work in an industry that is so seasonal, we know that all of our Saturday Octobers and all of our Saturday, Novembers, March, April, those are our prime dates. So we have to be really careful to make sure that we are maximizing our capabilities when we can,
hmm
especially because we live in Arizona. So
For sure.
some florists may have minimums, modest minimums. Some florists may have very high minimums. It's simply
Mhm.
how they've chosen to set up their business. And we're always going to be respectful for that. So we go through all of that. Again, we're not getting heavy into the design yet. The
Okay.
idea is the client has already looked at the florist's website. Ideally, maybe they've had an informational exchange virtually or they've done an in person, but we're
Mhm.
not getting into the quantities. We're not building out their ceremony florals. We're not doing the centerpieces. That comes later, that
Mhm.
comes after the commitment. So we have signed our floral contract and we have made our deposit, and we know that we have this amazing florist ready for us as soon as we start digging deep into design.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, Sarah, when the planner and the client comes to you, ready to talk all things floral, we've already committed to you as our florist. From a design standpoint, what foundation, what decision should we have made before we dig into florals?
First and foremost, like just easy peasy, is venue, and they're going to have their venue because they have their date at that time. So, and I will also add that if we have clients that don't work with a planner, they don't even know what those steps are. They don't know where to start. So, working with a planner is really important because they're going to keep the client on track.
Yes. Oh, I
Um,
forgot. Forgive me, Sarah. I forgot something really important.
yes.
I want to make sure that I say this as a good reminder to the industry and to our sweet couples. Once you have decided upon your selected vendor, please, please, please let the vendors that you don't choose know. Doesn't have to be a long, drawn out explanation, doesn't have to be uncomfortable. Just a simple email exchange thanking them for the time they spent with you and letting them know you've moved on to a different direction is so appreciated in
So
our
appreciate.
industry.
Yes, because that vendor did take time, several hours, to talk to you and to try to, understand what you were going for. And they usually give you a deliverable that they spent time on. So it's just kind like if they've been around the game for a long time, they are not going to feel offended. They might be a little hurt that, they didn't get to work with the client, but just a really quick little email or text saying, we loved what you showed us, but we decided that we were going to go in a different direction. That's it. That's all you have to say. But just not saying anything after someone spent several hours of their time to work on something for you it's kind of a gut punch. So I think that's a good thing to do. But now back to everything settled. They're working with the florist. They've figured out the one that they're so happy to be working with. And that florist got the, yay, we chose you message. So where do we go from there?
Yes. I mean, you had mentioned ideally you wanted them to have their gown
Yes.
selected.
Yes. Gown is a big deal because I feel like venue and gown sort of start to give a feel for the type of wedding that it's going to be. Also, if they've already sent out save the dates and they know that it looks kind of similar to the aesthetic that they're wanting to go with, that's a really cool thing to bring to the florist.
So by
Because
that, Sarah, you mean if the save the date had a certain type of font or
or
script or like a
color
logo,
palette
a
or yes.
decal. Okay.
Yes, because that's the first touch point that the guest is going to get when
Yeah.
they are finding out about the wedding.
Mhm.
And it does just kind of set the tone for the whole thing. I really always loved when the attire for the wedding party is chosen.
Okay.
That is a big thing because colors are so nuanced. And if you're trying to stay within a palette, always the classic to go to with weddings is wedding white and greenery or just all white or, that's always really classic and timeless. But if you want to add some color in there, I do think that it's important to know what everybody's wearing and the color palette that is going in that direction. Also, color palette dictates a lot of things for design, not just floral. Like, if you're getting a custom, uh, seating chart situation or a wall or something built, like we need Pantone colors and things from that, like, so that's really really good to have. Also, I love it when couples, if they know specific flowers that they absolutely love and they want incorporated, please ask that right away so we can determine if they're in season or not and if they are going to cost a fortune or not. Sometimes certain blooms are really high price. So,
So specifically with the colors, Sarah,
mhm.
it, should their color palette be finalized or should it be considered? Because I would imagine when you start talking blooms, that can change
Mhm.
it a bit, right?
Yes, I mean, it can, but I think more so what happens is they are trying to get the blooms to complement colors that they've already chosen.
Like
Um,
foundational colors, you would say.
Foundational colors, yes. So it doesn't have to be finalized, like, everything is a work in progress, really,
Right.
until, like, everything has to be finalized a month out. But I do think that it's important to have at least, maybe 3 colors that it's getting, like, worked with, so
So three primary colors, and then
mhm,
we have our accent colors that maybe
sure.
we're more flexible with. Sarah, how do you feel about linens? Should linens be established before florals?
I think they can be, and sometimes, like, as the floral designer, you can riff off the linens and be like, "Oh my gosh, what if we pulled this in? What if we pulled that in?" So that's a great detail to have, but sometimes the linens can riff off the flowers.
Right,
So
right. Okay.
again, it's like the priority of the design. So if the clients are like, we really love these flowers, they're super important to us, I think then everything else kind of needs to be built around that. But
Mhm.
if some of the other design elements are more important, then they need to have the floral riff off of that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. That's a really lovely way to explain that. There does have to be design means flexibility and kind of ebbing and flowing and it's coming together. It's a creation. So,
Yes, yes, it's a collaboration. I mean, a lot of times there's many different people working on that design. And so for us to have like foundational things like a color palette to kind of
mhm,
build off of is
mhm.
great. And I always enjoy getting a design deck that has details in it, like this is the linens they already picked. I mean, sometimes just because of the way timing works with appointments and things like that, with everybody involved, you can't talk about flowers right away. It does need to be brought in, but definitely shouldn't be held off until the very end. Like, oh, I guess we have this money left in the budget, so we're going to figure out what we can do with the flowers, kind of a thing. I think that happens. Like, I don't know why. It seems like it's kind of an afterthought, even though when brides start planning, they're pinning flowers on their Pinterest and,
I
so
I think and I'd love to move into this part, but I think partly why, Sarah, is because other pieces of it are easily definable from a budgeting standpoint, more so like they're set. This rental cluster of furniture is this amount, or this linen is this amount. I feel like as far as the florals go, and even, I mean, me as a planner, I still like really have to reach out and ask and study, and I don't always feel great estimating floral quotes because they're one of the harder pieces to really, there's so much that contributes to the pricing of them. So,
so
can you help us understand? I think the biggest question I hear is why are flowers so expensive?
yes. Oh, it's a hard question, but just some quickies. It's tough because most people's experience with floral is at the grocery store. And the
Mhm.
pricing is very low because those are almost like, if you will, an outlet flower. If you are going to last chance, that's what the flowers are at the grocery store. So we all love our inexpensive Trader Joe's peonies, including myself, but they are ones that are not picked at their absolute prime for events. You'll notice you'll buy those and they are in the vase for 2 days. So there's a thing called vase life with flowers. They're in the vase for 2 days, they're gone, but you got your money's worth. You didn't pay a lot, but you got your money's worth.
Sure.
So professional florists would never opt to use those flowers in a wedding because we have to often start working with them on the Monday or Tuesday before the wedding. They
Wow.
have to be processed, what we call. So there's labor involved in processing them, which is taking all the stems off, conditioning back in the water so they're going to stay fresh for that entire week while we're building those designs. There's labor in building the designs. And then there's also labor in installing all of those fresh flowers on the wedding day. So you're not paying for just flowers. And
Right.
that's where people get a little caught up. You're paying for the labor, you're paying for the flowers, and they are expensive. They're not inexpensive. I remember when I first started in floral 30 years ago, a carnation, when you would go to buy it in bulk, we also have to buy in bulk. We can't just buy like a couple stems for something. You have to buy many flowers at
Right.
once. So you would buy, like, just to make things simple, a bulk bunch of carnations. They would be like a quarter each. And then you mark up accordingly on that price, just like everything does for retail. But now they're more like $1 and up a piece for a carnation.
Wow.
Everyone goes, oh, carnations. Oh, sometimes they can be that expensive. But again, like, the main thing is you're not paying just for the flowers, you're paying for all of the labor and all the hands that touch those flowers to make them there. You're also paying for the vessels, for them to be cleaned. Mostly florists are in charge of all the candlelight at the wedding, which we usually begrudge because that's not what we signed up to do. We signed up to do flowers and to arrange flowers, not clean candle holders and, make sure everything's lit and it's working, burning properly, and the liability of all of that. So that's also included in that proposal is everything involved. And so that's where the mindset has to start with, oh my gosh, like we could DIY this, but that is a terrible idea because you don't know what to do. Say you ordered a bunch of flowers somehow wholesale and you don't realize that they have to be in a cooler for days leading up, especially in Arizona. So, yeah, that is just quickie in a nutshell why it's so expensive. There's so much more that goes into it besides just the flowers.
And I think of all the vendors, the biggest underestimation is the amount of labor
Mhm.
and setup and breakdown
Mhm.
that our florists do.
Mhm.
It's unbelievable. I did a wedding once with a floral friend many, many, many years ago, and I was absolutely flabbergasted with how much time was required for just prepping the vessels alone.
Oh,
And
sure.
then the strike at the end of the night, dumping all the flowers and packing them all up and loading them in.
Mhm.
It was unbelievable. So I really think there's a big underestimation in the labor that's required to do the beautiful work that you do.
Yeah,
Truly.
absolutely. I always say it's high cost, high labor, it's really unfortunately low profit. So that's another thing too that I think is a really valuable piece of information is the perception is, oh my gosh, I just paid this florist several $1,000s for these flowers. They must be rich. They must be like really raking it in, or they're ripping me off, or, they're just trying to, bump up the price because it's a wedding. It's not that. Like, really, what the florist actually gets for themselves after they've paid the crew, after they have bought all the supplies and all the things is not that much.
Right.
And it is very difficult to just to realize profit in this part of the industry. So really florists are in it because I always say we're like golden retrievers. We love everybody and we want to make everybody happy. We just get so much joy from creating with this beautiful product that's grown in nature to make someone's day spectacular. So, it's a labor of love. It's not just a I'm doing this to try to get rich. If everybody did that, it would be amazing, but that's not what happens. So,
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I think that's really helpful. Sarah, my goal with this podcast is to be able to try to help clients in all different pricing ranges.
mhm,
Um, and when I first chat with the client and they haven't booked their venue yet, I have to really educate them on the difference between, I mean, the budgets really. I mean, you have your DIY kind of backyard, do it yourself wedding,
mhm,
which can be absolutely beautiful, meaningful, so special, so economically wise, all the things, a lot of labor, and you have to
mhm,
know what you're getting yourself into, but that's a route you can go. And then you have kind of like our golf clubs, our inclusive wedding venues. Then we have a little bit of our unique spaces like museums and like the botanical garden and maybe like a country club. It's a little bit, more expensive. And then you have our resorts.
mhm,
And you and I started my business the same year you did. So
mhm,
we now primarily work in the resort setting because I think well, I'll speak for myself, but as a planner, I know when we work at a resort, we can do such a better job for our
mhm,
couple because of the infrastructure, because of the foundation that comes in a resort setting. There's so many resources. If lights go out, there's a department to call. If a toilet's not working, there's a department to call. I mean, you
mhm,
name it, we've got people. It really helps us be able to do what we do well. But with that being said, the pricing is just all across the map. With
mhm,
our resort level clients, I mean, for food and beverage alone, you are probably looking at a $60,000 commitment once
mhm,
you factor in tax and gratuity. And I'm generalizing. Certainly that changes based on head counts and property and so forth. But
mhm,
that is shocking when I start chatting with some people when they realize that the resort alone before anything else could potentially be, 60. $1,000. I'm going to ask you a hard question, Sarah. I hope you don't feel like I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm sure that I know you have a heart and I know you are filled with creativity. I would love for you to kind of talk us through, let's say, regardless of what the wedding budget is, regardless of what blooms they choose, regardless of what floral company they go with, regardless of the setting. If
Mhm.
someone is so excited about their flowers, if they want to make the smartest choice for the biggest impact,
Mhm.
what do you recommend they do?
I think that the biggest impact needs to be made um, really first at their ceremony. Sometimes that gets like a little bit pushed on the priority scale, but those are the pictures of the whole reason why everybody's there and doing what they're doing. Was these two people decided to commit to each other in public with all of their people, that they're going to stick together and do this commitment thing. So I think ceremony photos are really important because that is the reason for the occasion. I think um also centerpieces are a they are important. A lot of times those kind of get put down on the priority scale too, but that's where your guests are sitting. That's where they're spending a lot of time throughout the evening. So I think that that's important. Also, in terms of what's going to be in your wedding album throughout the whole time you're married is photos of you and your wedding party. So there's definitely been a draw away from like boutonnieres, corsages, like more of those wearables. And that isn't like a huge part of the budget, but that does kind of help, to not have those. That tradition doesn't need to I don't think it needs to stick around. And in fact, sometimes some of those things don't even look good with like the outfit they're wearing or whatever. But I also have seen like a shift too where um the bridal party specifically, they're not carrying as large of bouquets.
Mhm.
They're just kind of carrying like a little posy. And even I've
Oh,
seen bridal bouquets getting smaller or like more structural. So that's not like a huge budget area either.
mhm.
So I think impact definitely for longevity and what you're going to remember in photographs from your wedding is ceremony. And tables don't necessarily even get photographed that much, but it was
Right.
still
The
part
head
of,
table.
yeah, and it's still part of the whole like guest experience. So I think
Right.
that's important. There's definitely like uh different schools of thought on this, but I was always willing to repurpose whatever was at the ceremony
Sure.
into other places. So, say you have like a beautiful arch. That arch can go behind the head table or the sweetheart table for the couple after the ceremony's over. And that's going to result in more labor costs typically from the florist to be able to stay and move that over. But it
That's never easy.
no, but it still like is not as much as creating a whole other backdrop for behind those areas. And a
Right.
lot of times, you're not even looking at it going, "Oh my gosh, that was just at the ceremony area."
Say it's like behind the scenes at Disneyland. They're not
Yes,
paying
and I
attention.
also feel like that is such a bonus for our couples, just realizing, "Oh my gosh, like, yeah, we're gonna have this beautiful thing at the ceremony, but we're gonna be able to use it throughout the night." So that's
Right.
a great idea. Yeah, and budget-wise, even prioritizing ceremony, it doesn't have to be this big, huge, full arch. It could be two really beautiful, grand arrangements on pedestals or something like that that are really focal right up there. They're on the sides of the officiant, and then they get moved somewhere else,
Yeah.
during reception time. So it doesn't always have to be this crazy, huge thing, but it just needs to be impactful, I think.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you. Um, all right. Sarah, will you share with us what the future of your business looks like since you just celebrated this massive milestone of completing your last wedding as a floral designer?
Yes. I am really excited to still serve the wedding community. It's been my dream since I was truly like a little girl to just spend the majority of my days painting and drawing.
Mm,
And I know that seems kind of silly or whatever, but I just also hit a milestone birthday. I just turned 50, and I'm like,
happy
man,
birthday.
thank you. But, I'm half a century old. And when I really examined what I would regret when it's my time to leave this earth, and it would be not trying to pursue creating in that way.
Mm,
Definitely working with flowers is very creative, very artistic. But my latest endeavor is for the wedding community is I am offering commissions to have your wedding florals captured in paintings. So a lot of people always think that that is just a bridal bouquet. It doesn't have to be just a bridal bouquet. It could be your tablescape that you spent months thinking about, those centerpieces, those vessels, those candle holders, the linens that you chose, the beautiful charger, the stemware. Like, I want to be able to capture those moments for you. Maybe it's your wedding cake, or maybe it's just like a piece of the floral from your arch that you looked at in a close up from your photographer, and you just think that it's the most beautiful thing, but you might not necessarily frame that photograph and put that up on your wall, but you would a custom art piece. So,
mm,
I am really, really, really excited to be able to collaborate once again with clients to create a forever floral moment that's meaningful from their wedding for their walls. Yeah, and it's a keepsake too. Like, I mean, how cool would that be to pass that down to one of your children, and then they pass it down to their children and say, "Oh, you know what this painting is? This was grandma and grandpa's flowers from their wedding." So,
yeah.
I just kind of see that as a cool legacy. I have worked with so many talented photographers over the years. And that wedding album is so awesome. And if they get their photographs enlarged and one of those ends up on the wall for, ever, is so great. But a lot of times that doesn't happen, like you have your album and that's it. But how often do you keep taking it out and looking at those photos? So it is a constant visual reminder um, that your wedding was a piece of art.
Oh,
Uh,
I'm so excited about this.
yeah. So I have pricing and options on my website, which is zinniafloral. There might be a rebrand coming down the road, but for now, that's where you can find it. And so instantly people can kind of get an idea of pricing and what it looks like to start the process. But all I really need are those amazing images. I don't need any fresh flowers from the event. I can just interpret from photographs. And the examples that I have on my website are from photographs. One of our brides got married 2 years ago, and her bouquet was not able to be pressed and preserved the way she intended it to. And she sent me a photo, and the commissions take about a month just because I have other things that I'm working on. But then now she has this super cool framed piece of artwork that's her bridal bouquet, and she will get to have it forever.
Oh, it's incredible. So how does that process look? Someone just reaches out to you
Sure. Yeah,
and
they can.
looks.
Yeah, they can reach out via my website. You can DM me on Instagram, call me. I know that's kind of analogous to actually call somebody, but you can call me and find out what it looks like. And then I'll just talk through, like, how it's going to work. Usually I take about half down right now on the website. Like, just say someone's like, I'm doing it. They can pay for it in full, but I can also split it out into two payments where I take half down and then the other half upon completion. I offer kind of a midway check in and say, this is where I'm at with it. And this is the concept that I'm thinking. Do you want me to revise this at all? I do find that usually my commission clients are like, we love your art. So you just kind of take artistic liberty. And
Yeah.
that makes me so excited. And it takes off a
Right.
little pressure too, because then I can just kind of come um, to what's in mind. One of my latest ones, the bride had this incredible floral gown that had like butterflies on it. And it was
Wow.
so unique and so interesting. And I was like, I can't just paint her bouquet. Like, I have to include that dress. So I had a photograph of her in her dress and I painted the whole thing. I actually didn't paint her face. So I can paint people, but I just feel like it's nice to just have it be a little more artistic and not an actual portrait of the person. Yeah, I think the process is really easy. It's so fun. It's so meaningful. I just think it's so cool to be able to again use my creativity, still get to paint the flowers that I love so much, but do
Yeah.
it in such a different way.
That's just incredible. And what an amazing gift someone could buy for their loved one.
Yes, yes, I love it as an anniversary gift.
Yeah.
Or a wedding gift. Like if,
Yeah.
a bride's mom is like, I know this is what I want to give them. I can't think of anything else. So
Right.
let me go ahead and prepay for it. And then,
Hmm.
that'll be a surprise to them or, whatever. Yeah, there are so many things we can do with gifting and, yeah, I'm so jazzed about it.
I'm
It's
excited too.
really so it brings me so much joy, and I feel like my clients are just so excited to receive it.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm so grateful that you'll can have this connection to continue on within the wedding industry because we become like family, going
Totally.
through these behind the scenes, sometimes stressful situations. It instantly bonds
It
all of
does.
us that are
It's
crazy enough to work
so
in the
true.
business.
Yeah, it's so true. I knew that weddings needed to be kind of a phase out for me because like you said, it's so much labor, it's long hours, I'm just in a different phase of my life, but I just can't leave this precious community. I mean, 15 years working with people like you, like it just can't end.
Yeah.
I can't have that happen. So, yeah, it'll be nice. I won't get to be as, face to face with everybody, but it's still a way that I can serve this great community. What we do is really amazing, rewarding work. Like it is a big deal. It's such a reverent thing to get married. We live in such an uncertain time. And for people to say, I'm going to be certain about this, like
Yeah.
I'm betting on this is so amazing.
Yeah.
So I just still need to be a part of it.
Okay. Well, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to see your beautiful creations.
Thanks.
And that leads me to our last question, Sarah. We always close each podcast by sharing the name of it, which is More Than Just a Wedding. And I would love to ask you, Sarah, and there's no right or wrong answer, but what do the words more than just a wedding mean to you?
It means that it is a beginning. It's not a destination. It is such a joyful, amazing celebration, like I said, of commitment and love and life and families joining together and people starting their families. I worked with so many people over the years and I would do like little pop-ups at a store or whatever, and they would come out with their babies and strollers and say, I'm buying a bouquet from you because you did my wedding flowers. And I just think that's amazing to have that kind of legacy. And so it is absolutely more than just a wedding. A wedding is a big deal, like it just is. But, it's not all the beautiful things involved, even though it does make it such a special day. It is it's just life. It's people starting their lives and people celebrating that start. So
Thank you for sharing. And thank you, everyone, for listening or watching. I'm so thankful that Sarah was able to join us today and share her knowledge and her talent and just her beauty for making things beautiful.
thank you, Jennifer. It was so fun.
Yes. All right, everyone, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.